All right, here we are, everybody, at the Powerhouse Smart Luxury Conference. I am so excited to introduce our next speaker, Barbara Ballinger. Barbara and I have become close friends over these months as we've been preparing for the conference, and I love what she has to share about sustainability. Barbara also is near and dear to my heart because she speaks to the realtor community, which is where my roots come from. She often is writing for National Association of Realtor and has such a close-knit sphere of influence within the realtor, architect, building community that you'll definitely want to get to know Barbara in this conference. So without further ado, please let me turn it over to Miss Barbara Ballinger.
Thank you so much, Wendy. I am so sorry that I can't be in Chicago. I'm on the East Coast. And if it wasn't for this pandemic, I would be there. I lived there for 8 years, and it's one of my favorite cities in the world and probably my favorite city in the US. But don't tell all the other cities that I say that too. Sustainability is good for our planet, natural resources, health, finances, and hearts. I've decided to talk about 8 lessons in this speech that have helped many of us get through the pandemic's last 12 months as our homes became our refuges. They are likely to remain influences as we await the end and move forward, and I think they'll become very important in coming decades too, or even more important. Sustainability isn't complicated, even though it sounds like a hard to understand word. One dictionary defines it as meeting our needs without compromising the ability of future generations to meet theirs, whether resources are natural, economic, or social. Let's look at the first slide because it illustrates a landscape, and landscapes that are sustainable keep going. They're easy to care for. They're beautiful. They soothe our feelings when we're alone, when we're feeling down. This is from Howard Roberts, owner of Liquidscapes, which is a great firm in New Jersey. What sustainability requires is taking time to select carefully and heed the old buzzword, prioritize. Since most of us can't afford everything. My mother taught me that no house will have everything you want. We also should rely more on the new, almost overused coronavirus word, pivot, ability to switch to other choices when we must, whether it's a restaurant switching to selling groceries because they can't serve indoors or outdoors, or many realtors becoming stagers. This is another great landscape, which Howard Roberts did and shows a sustainable landscape. And we're going to go to the next slide, which shows a backyard with crushed gravel, which the owner chose because she couldn't afford slate, which is much more expensive. Crushed gravel is still great. It offers a crunching sound for free when you walk on it. And also water seeps into the earth, so it's not running off or lost, which is a sustainable concept. In writing about design trends, now Gulp, for 49 years, I have seen trends come and go. This new one of sustainability brings to the forefront ways we can help and share. We expect it to last. Overwhelmed? Don't be. Start by doing it in your own home and office. My 30-something kids and Beau, I'm too old to say boyfriend, got me to recycle. I hesitated but was won over. So now in my kitchen, I have 2 garbage cans. I encourage my kids about the joy of walking. The next slide, please. Rather than hopping in a car. Share your ideas with family, friends, and colleagues. I think I do with many of the topics I write about, from real estate to food, entertaining, health, and personal. My latest book with writing partner Margaret Crane was about navigating singlehood as we both became single. This is Suddenly Single After 50, and we write a weekly blog, Life Lessons at 50 plus. The next slide. You may have ways to do so to share ideas. If you're a real estate salesperson, tout that old house down the street, which offers cozy, lived-in love rooms and a front porch, rather than suggest someone bulldoze it and go brand new. This is the first lesson, where we choose to live. Don't think homeowners automatically must go to a traditional suburb or condo or cooperative apartment building in an urban setting. Help them think out of the box as more options flourish that encourage togetherness. After so many months of socially distancing and quarantining, more crave face-to-face contacts, which nurture and sustain souls. In fact, science has told us before the pandemic that isolation was bad for emotional and physical well-being. A Pew Research Center survey conducted in 2018 found that 1 in 10 Americans feel lonely or isolated all or most of the time. We know that COVID-19 worsened that feeling. We crave hugs, touching, kissing. I was so excited to talk to a nurse who gave me the vaccine shot. Besides getting the vaccine, was a live person in front of me to have a conversation with. This is the walkable score, which is important as more people care about being in close proximity. Today, there's increased interest in such communities, whether located in suburbs or the city. Some realtors, like Stephanie Malas with Compass Real Estate in New Jersey, who's shown here, she uses a site's walk score for a house or building as part of her marketing materials. How far is it from the public transportation? Many buyers want to know. How far from the area's coffee, bread store, movie theater? Remember those? Talking to shopkeepers adds richness to our lives and theirs. Friendships become contagious. Storytelling keeps us going. The good news is that there are variations on this theme. So I'm going to show the next slide, which is a greenhouse project is a way for senior citizens to live together with an aide on site in a smaller grouping, sometimes several small groupings, and avoid sterile, less nurturing facilities and sometimes big nursing homes. It too has its own website, www.thegreenhouseprojects.org. And these days, any group facility should be checked for its quality of ventilation, air purification, and ability to keep occupants safe, since we saw the coronavirus hit hard the elder nursing home population. This is one greenhouse project in the Hoover Kitchen in Colorado. The next slide shows another different type of housing option, co-housing communities. They provide living near others, maybe by living in your own home or apartment and sharing facilities with others, such as a communal kitchen or garden. You cook dinner one night for all, I cook the second night, maybe Wendy cooks the third night. The Co-Housing Association has a website, www.cohousing.org, which lists where they're located and how to start your own group. Another option is agrihoods, are an exciting alternative for all ages, sprouting nationally for those who like the concept of farm-to-table living. Instead of walking on pavement, picture strolling down a grassy path dotted with blueberry bushes. The idea got off the ground after Serenbe emerged, which is outside Atlanta. It was started by Steve Nygren and his family for their own weekend enjoyment. They built a house. They kept extending their weekends away from their main home. They bought more land, encouraged others to come and build, which they did. Retailers opened shops, restaurants, a hotel, wellness center. I've been there to interview Mr. Nygren and his family, and it's terrific. Kewah River is a new waterfront community, next slide, near Charleston, South Carolina, and it's the region's only agrihood. It's seen a huge increase in interest from second home buyers from the Northeast and Midwest looking to increase square footage, especially for waterfront properties that allow an outdoor lifestyle. The community is focused on sustainability and nature, and half its 2,000 acres will remain undeveloped. And another great reason for some of these is that you need a car less because you're walking more, you're bicycling more, maybe using a golf cart more. There's now a book also about the agrihood concept titled Agrihood, which lists many nationwide, some with their own professional farm manager or residents who help conserve the land. After all, did more of us take to farming during the pandemic? The second concept that I want to share is how we make houses stronger and resilient. Who wants to incur thousands of dollars in damage when the next winter storm or summer hurricane hits? Not me. Depends on where you live, of course. Putting on a new roof or cleaning out a flooded basement are expensive and time-consuming. We certainly don't want to do a lot of these tasks since we want to spend our time sparking joy. Also, many of us found during the pandemic that finding competent workmen and women to do the work and affordably was tough. And architect Bob Zuber of Morganti Wilson Architects in Chicago told me recently for an NAR story that lumber shortages increased during the pandemic with so much work, which led to higher material and labor costs. One way to pair the work is to build and remodel smartly. Choose a location that's less prone to problems, away from the water. If you have to have that water view and access, build up higher. This is what architect Richard Budnowski did with his house. He learned many lessons from hurricanes such as Sandy and Katrina elsewhere. He also works along the Jersey Shore and its barrier islands, but he constructs and retrofits properties according to FEMA flood zone and local codes, pays much more careful attention. This means adjusting heights based on a site's elevation. This house is built up high, as many houses in places like Charleston also are, Savannah. Everything got more complicated and expensive since Hurricane Sandy, he told me. It also means choosing the best materials and systems that weather natural disasters well, and even bad weather on a routine basis. For example, processed materials like Trex for porches don't have to be repainted yearly, so consider them. I recently did. I got tired of repainting a back porch, and I chose an example that looks really natural and like wood. Schedule a periodic check of your trees to do so branches don't become launching pads for squirrels on your roof and get into your roof, into your attic, and so they don't sway in the wind, your trees don't, against your home. You also don't want them to fall down during a storm because they're diseased. So call in that arborist, or advise your client to call in an arborist when they buy a house, or maybe once a year. Architect Nathan Kipnis, the next slide, who's a wonderful Chicago architect and part of this seminar, is optimistic. He told me, clarity is in the air. The new Biden administration is putting climate change and sustainability front and center, and people are now able to comfortably make longer term plans. The third lesson I'm sharing is to size right and only include essential rooms. Years ago in the 1990s, I interviewed architect and author Sarah Suzanka, who had the not so big house concept. She started talking about having houses that were smaller and more efficient long before we heard of the term downsize, or at least as often. Her first of many books was a runaway hit, The Not So Big House, because we had just gone through the outrageous 80s with humongous homes. Think Dallas, Falcon Crest, and today's Succession TV series with big hulking homes, or the show Billions. She taught us many principles, such as making rooms look larger, next slide, by varying the height of ceilings. There's so many tricks. You can do so with paint. You can do so with different types of furniture, more windows, bringing in nature. Through subsequent decades, home sizes have gone up and down, almost like hemlines. By 2015, the average size of new homes in this country hit an all-time high of 2,687 square feet. In the third quarter of 2019, the National Association of Home Builders reported that single-family home sizes were smaller. I think part of that is my generation, the boomers, wanting to go smaller. The average fell to 2,464 square feet. The trend has continued also with millennials. Not all of them want large houses like their parents. A lot of them want to spend their time cooking, all those breads they're baking, traveling, all those trips they're taking or will take again. Part of the reason is that millennials made up the largest group of buyers in 2020 and have very different tastes than us older folks. Zillow reported that they prefer homes in urban areas close to amenities, or they did, and I think it will come back. Of course, that excludes those who were renting in fled urban areas during the pandemic, in part because of low mortgage rates. Let's see what happens once the pandemic ends and life returns to the new normal. Those who think ahead of the curve also consider all the pluses of not going bigger than need be, including using and spending less on electricity and gas, paying lower real estate taxes, using less water, having other lower maintenance costs such as less lawn to mow or plow, and needing fewer furnishings and materials to decorate, both inside and outside. By fully using all rooms, you can scale back. Next slide. If the dining room is only for fancy meals, Make it work also as the homework center or a play group area, as many of us had to do during the pandemic, or it can work as your office or library. Books and food mix well. If you're lucky enough to have a mud room, it can also be a laundry room and crafts project, and also a secondary entrance. Some turn it into a pet washing center. Here, this is a landing, wasted space. It's become another office. Set aside a corner of it for kids to play. And then we're going to look at the next slide, which is a pet washing center. And laundry rooms and mudrooms especially often have extra cabinetry. Put the dogs' toys and feeding bowls in there. And if you're lucky enough to have a sink or can add a hose, it can be a spa center too. I turned a landing in my house into my home office before the pandemic because I liked the light that came in from a window, a large window. And since I work at home alone, I loved hearing the sound of the mailman trudge up the front step. It was a big break in my day to go outside and get the mail. Rooms often can be smaller too. More children today do their homework or projects in a shared children's space, perhaps a basement or at a table in the family room rather than in their bedroom. That room often needs to be just big enough for a bed and maybe a night table. An expert like Dr. Lisa Medali, who's a psychologist and founder of Dr. Lullaby, Digital Sleep Solutions for Sleep Problems in Children in Chicago, taught me and others that any bedroom should be a place for quiet and not for screen time, since it distracts children as well as adults from good sleep. The next lesson is plan right and for joy. Too many decisions regarding our houses rely on the benchmark of what will the next buyer want? Will they want an all-white kitchen? Will they want a dining room that's a formal dining space? Will they want an open plan? Will they want a beige living room or blue shutters? We've been too consumed with worrying about their dreams that we neglect enjoying ours today. With little inventory available, many of us need to focus on our homes as if we might live there forever, for at least 5 or 10 years. Fix them up as you want them, and people are, which is leading to greater personalization. I think this is a terrific kitchen with aqua blue. It looks very 50s-ish, from designer Linda Fennessy of Kitchen Magic. And she says orange and magenta are going to be huge in appliance choices. And here, as I said, she used the aqua blue. The next slide, please. Another idea is using wallpapers coming back. For years, it seemed banished. I recently did on the ceiling of a small bedroom in my own home, just as my mom had done in my childhood bedroom. It gives its room personality. And this is the wonderful Chicago designer Sumner Thornton of Sumner Thornton Design. She did it on the ceiling of a living room. So it adds a Mondrian-esque modern edge. And I think it's, you walk in and pow, it with her choice of colors. I think it's a very exciting room to be in. If you love real marble, rather than materials that masquerade as such as quartz and quartzite, go for it and stop worrying whether some spilled red wine will etch its surface. At the same time, you should know that removing a stain and trying to polish out the etching is not easy and will cost, most likely thousands of dollars, says my often go-to kitchen expert, Chicago designer Mick DiGiulio. And this is one of his designs. And he told me, I think it's terrific, but it's real marble. If you have to consider the type of person you are before making the choice, and the road is long, 10 years from now, will you be as forgiving? If stains and etching might bother you, don't get the white marble or almost any soft marble or limestone. Porcelains, he said, are amazing products and completely resist stains or etching. The edges need more artistry to create thicker countertops, but it's the up and coming material for least amount of care, which I think is interesting. And the next slide is also from Nick. Also, choose carefully what will last. That's a huge part of sustainability. Here's another great kitchen he did. He favors cabinetry manufactured under the highest environmental standards, so it lasts, stone tops that are natural quartzite, a stainless steel hood perhaps, maybe a planked reclaimed wood wall at a fireplace, wood flooring, energy efficient appliances with that Energy Star label, and all things related to waste reduction. So you can have beauty and functionality. The same goes for finding a way to incorporate some of your family furnishings. Despite a decorator friend or a friend telling you, it looks so dated and has scratches, how could you possibly use that? Many designers say today, that's the point. If you love it, reuse it. If it speaks to you in some way, listen to your inner voice and keep it. That's another sustainable message. My fifth lesson is consider pairing energy use and maintenance. Besides looking at a home's location and its curb appeal, number of rooms and their sizes in the yard, add in how much energy it consumes and all the home improvement tasks that await you. Many first-time homeowners, and there were many during this pandemic, are shocked to find buying a house goes beyond the down payment, monthly mortgage, and annual real estate taxes. Here's a start of some of those costs they find. Are the gutters and downspouts in good shape? If not, they'll need new ones. How about the roof? How many more years does it have offered? Did they ask that? Is there adequate insulation factor in the attic, basement, walls, and doors? There wasn't in my 1797 house when I bought it 11 years ago. I didn't think of that, and I had been a homeowner. I added lots more insulation. Now it's in good shape, but it cost. Don't forget the furnace, windows, and doors. You don't want them to leak. You want them to be really efficient. Are there newer, more efficient LED bulbs in, and are they on dimmable switchers? Lighting makes a difference in bills, as well as how much you enjoy reading or cutting vegetables. Designer Lori Gilder in Los Angeles, who does wonderful work, tells me always to encourage people to put LEDs on dimmers. Kipnis, again, suggests having your clients get an energy check for their new house. And this is one of his energy efficient net zero houses. The same way they get an exam with their doctor to know if all their parts work their best. And if they've lived in the house for years, they might want to check it periodically. Maybe something's happened and the windows or door are leaking. Time to reseal and cork. That happens with use over time. And if you really want to be energy conscious, think about going net zero, which he has done. Over the course of a year, such buildings generate the energy on site that they need using clean renewable resources that are equal to or greater than the total amount of energy consumed on site. He said to me, net zero is the big buzzword, which to me means no fossil fuel use. This points to incorporating a high level of sustainability into all aspects of design, in particular in houses and cars, to achieve comfort and efficiency that are well designed and good for the planet. He has designed such houses. The first slide, two back, is a community in Allendale, Massachusetts, which hasn't been built yet, but is in the process of getting approval, and it's got a ground net. It's a ground net community. Let's go past Nate Kipnis's photo to a garage. Garages are getting more attention these days. This is in a multifamily building, but they've added, many of them have added bicycle rooms to store the bicycle. They've added bike repair shops, and the latest buzz I've heard is bike lounges where bicyclists hang out. This is a cute design. I think these capsules done by an entrepreneur, Eric Pearson, came up with the idea to safeguard bikes after he had lost 6. So they could go into a shared garage space, an office commercial space, or you could use it in your own home, if people have access to your garage somehow. The point of all this is to encourage clients and colleagues to take care of all the stuff that gives the house a good infrastructure and helps preserve its parts before they go for the fun stuff and glitz. And this is hard. Before they go for that sparkling, well-equipped kitchen, the spa-looking bathrooms, the entertaining outdoor space, which all of us wanted, with kitchen deck, hot tub, gardens, pond. Some easy ways to do so, next slide, are with induction appliances that pair energy. And next slide, that's from Sub-Zero. And this is from Robert Hursthouse Landscape Architects, who's another great Chicago landscape architect. Shade trees help cut AC use, especially, when they're near a house, or they just provide a place for you to go outside and get out of your hot house. The next lesson is number 6. Adapt structures and parts rather than throw them out. We've gone through years of seeing houses and neighborhoods bulldozed to gain bigger and more updated houses, which sometimes look so much the same as all the others on their street. We've called them cookie cutter designs, and they have in many cases destroyed the fabric of a neighborhood and its character. Part of the effort of sustainability is to retain what still works and adds character and isn't too worn or expensive to fix and reuse. Look at all the adapted buildings. This is a designer who I really like her work. We just made contact recently, Prasha Kagani of Prasha Interiors and Design. She likes to incorporate salvage wood in her kitchen designs. I use some old boards from the attic of my house as bedroom shelves to add patina to a redone white bathroom. Next slide. And we sometimes reuse buildings. This is the Sterling Lofts in Arable, Mass, outside Boston. The building dates from 1891. It was a 4-story jewelry factory and is now mixed income housing for 55 plus, thanks to the architectural team's transportation, a firm in the Boston area. They also did a building called the Union, next slide, which rehabbed a former Young Men's Christian Union building into 46 units of affordable housing, with 25 for those who were homeless. And I think it's terrific. They saved a building and they gave it a new lease on life. So I think it's very important. Next slide. I think it's very important to do this. This is another designer who I recently became acquainted with, Jody Swartz of Kitchen Visions outside Boston, who used a wood table as an island rather than the traditional island. So if you have a table, use it, make use of it, or find one at a thrift shop or an estate sale. And also some wood boards for open shelving. So there are lots of ways to save buildings and save objects, furnishings. And this is the part of the next lesson, number 7, which is to incorporate light, air, and nature. Because we know that nature is good for our health, according to scientists, we look for ways to incorporate outdoors and indoors. Hospitals are adding gardens for patients, staff, and visitors. The Mercy Medical Center in Baltimore is an example. It has 3 rooftop gardens, including a water feature. Many hospitals know to plant materials to appeal to all the senses, all 5 of them, and garden designers have taken cues from them inside and outside. Gina Kirk, who's vice president, KB Design Studio for KB Home, one of the nation's largest builders, says bringing in plants can help purify the air. And her company has published a sustainability report that addresses and encourages home buyers to do so. Other ways to do so in our homes are with bigger windows, more skylights, more glazing indoors, and the right kind of e-glass. We also try to place windows strategically to bring in cross ventilation and breezes, rather than rely only on mechanical ventilation systems to send out stale air and bring in fresh. We're also seeing more walls of glass installed across an entire space like this, which is from a great company called NanoWall, and they slide completely open and blur the lines between indoors and outside. Houses have gained bigger windows, as in the next slide. Morganti Wilson, who from Chicago, from a wonderful room they did. I mean, if you can't be outside, you might as well pretend that you are, and this does it. Apartment and condo buildings are also doing this too, as this building, this is a new building going up in Chicago, the Cirrus building. And this shows how a giant wall acts as a conservatory looking out on a real garden, but this is an indoor garden, and I think it's terrific. Our outdoor areas, whether a balcony, rooftop, or acres, also have become another room to expand space. We witnessed so many homeowners rushing to fix up their yards during the pandemic, to have a change of scenery, to do work, eat, socialize, meditate, master yoga poses, grow vegetables, listen to music, even watch TV, since there are now TVs that work outside. More considered all the senses as they added flowers, tables, seating, nighttime lights, patio heaters, which were tough to get as restaurants added them. And fire pits, I know that I wanted a Solo brand and they were sold out, so much so that people went on waiting lists. This is a wonderful rooftop deck by a garden designer I became familiar with when I wrote my book, The Garden Bible with Michael Glassman. So Amber Frieda, and this is in New York. The next slide. This is Ryan Kettlecamp. Ryan and his wife Claire have a great firm in Chicago area. And Ryan and his son, who was, I think this one was either high school or home from college, they planted their first victory garden in their Evanston yard, which is outside for Chicago, for those who aren't from here. The next slide is, this is from a landscape designer, Lori Van Zant in Utah, and she's been a great advisor to me about planting vegetables and herbs and designing gardens in her climate. And the next one, she's in Utah. And here's this, I like this one a lot because besides growing outdoors, and you could fence in the whole yard and keep out deer, rabbits, whatever. She also, with these kind of planters, you don't have to bend as much, which is good for people with back problems or people getting older. And I think it's a lovely area to stroll through also. The next one, these are a few of my favorites. This is a meditation garden by landscape architect Jack Carmen, and a very quiet, peaceful place. And I think a lot of us, that's what we needed during the pandemic. Keep going. And using native materials, which is an important concept. This is Michael Glassman, my co-author on the book, who's out in California. And a lot of landscape architects and designers were deluged with requests for areas for a fire pit, either permanent like this, building it in, or portable so you could take it with you. But this is great. And fire pits let you extend the seasons and enjoy them at night and as it's getting colder. And the next one, this is just a little balcony, and this was done by Amanda Wiss, a wonderful designer and professional organizer, who she pivoted during the pandemic to doing a lot more staging with her business, Urban Clarity. And she regularly does this for clients, helps people spruce up the areas before they sell them. So instead of just having a blank balcony, she now has an almost furnished room. The next shot is another Michael Glassman, which I like this because it offers some shade and cover. So it could be used perhaps if it was raining, depending on how the rain was coming down. And the next one. The next one takes us to our next lesson and our last one, which I've nicknamed, maybe coined the term, cross-pollinate and share what you have. I advocate learning from bees, who are excellent pollinators, as we know. Most of their life is spent collecting pollen, a source of protein that they feed to their developing offspring. And then there's a new generation. In a twist on pollination, let's all be more bee-like and share with others for future generations. Consider bringing in your older generation to live rather than have them in a sterile facility or lonely on their own, which Wendy's done with her mother. Multi-gen living is getting bigger. There now are almost 4 million such houses across the country. Some people did it because it was the cultural tradition not to let the old be alone. Others have done so for economic reasons, share the resources, or have a grandparent who's still in good shape, help watch the kids if the parent works. But the housing requires planning for the varied needs. Designer Peter Albanese of Ballinger Home Remodeling says that we're going to go back to the last one, says that there's no set design when he designs a kitchen for a multi-gen family. As a designer, he told me, you need to consider all the uses of the space and what their specific needs are going to be. For spaces to be used by seniors, in addition to evaluating the use, special consideration must be given to any limitation of their abilities. Counters and appliances need to be comfortably accessible and safe. Needs and abilities vary greatly. It could mean lowering a counter for a wheelchair. It could be meaning adding better light, more light, if their eyesight is deteriorating. It could mean installing pot drawers or pullouts. And when designing a space specifically for young adults who are involved in sports or clubs, for example, a family may want an area where they can come home and prepare quick meals, maybe with a beverage center, maybe with a microwave that's at their height and they can safely use. Many young adults live in fast-paced life, and a dedicated area for them to multitask might be considered appropriate. To offer some built-in separation to make life easy is also important. Some builders take the range of ages into account and build separate apartments. The next slide, which is Ashenwood's multi-gen housing outside Atlanta. This is one plan they did where another generation has an apartment within a home or a house within a house. There are all different variations on it. In the best situation, they have their own door to the outside, so they don't have to go through the rest of their home, but it depends on safety. So this is a concept that's gaining popularity. The next slide. This is a shed from Studio Shed, a company that does wonderful separate buildings. And these, during the pandemic, some of them were used for offices at home, studios, but they also come equipped so that they could be a complete house. I mean, I joked with my mother that I have a shed on my property and said, do you want me to turn it into housing for you? And she said, you're going to make me be in the back. And I thought I was doing her a favor by having her own quarters, but she didn't view it that way. So this is another option, and many of them are affordable, and many communities allow ADUs or these type of dwellings on the site. But it's key to make any of the changes early on rather than after if you can. It's usually less expensive and it's better. This is, the next slide is from Rosemary Rossetti, who's been a leader in universal design, which is a concept that the design works for all ages, all generations, no matter what challenges they face. Most often, we don't have to face what she did. She was instantly paralyzed from the waist down when she was crushed by a 7,000-pound tree while riding her bicycle. She and her husband designed, built, and now live in a national demonstration home and garden. This is their home in Columbus, Ohio. Their universal design living laboratory, which is what they call it, is for others to learn firsthand and tour what they may need at any age, not just when they're old, because this happened to Rosemary when she was young. We all know it happened to Christopher Reeve when he was young and active. She's become an expert on universal design and accessibility and has written books and given speeches on the title. She also consults through her Rosemary Enterprises Inc., which is www.rosemariespeaks.com. I kept my mom in her own apartment as she aged with help from me and an aide. We would have preferred to bring her to my home, but it's two-story layout and no first floor bedroom and full bathroom. It couldn't be adapted. So we did what we could. Her apartment had narrow interior hallways. It was built in 1959 in New York City, and a traditional wheelchair wouldn't fit through. So we had to find a smaller wheelchair and so on. We did all that, but the advantage of keeping her there offset some of the disadvantages. She had her great views of the East River and familiarity. Life is about trade-offs on everyone's part, or going back to my original thought, prioritizing. My goal in closing is to think more about how you can help others. When you make that soup, stew, or cookies, share it with your neighbors. Consider offering extra veggies from your garden to the post office worker who always gets through the snow to your door, or the shopkeeper who knows you left your cell phone, again, which I've done. We're going to go back to that other slide. If you might have a problem with mobility, or you have an older member you may want a dishwasher that's higher up so you don't have to bend down as much. Yes, it's been a trying year, and it still is for many who have lost jobs, their health care insurance, income, houses, family, and friends, or not yet gotten a vaccine. Let's brainstorm and work together to make the world a better place for those who come next. Let that be our legacy and the true meaning of sustainability. This is my garden book, my kitchen Bible, me, And lastly, my next book that's coming out, which is about healthy aging with my writing partner, Margaret Crane, Not Dead Yet, Rebooting Your Life After 50. It's on Amazon for pre-sales and it will be available in August. So thank you all for coming and I welcome your questions.
Wonderful. Thank you, Barbara. That was fantastic. And we do have a little time left for questions. So we're going to go to the chat and we'll be back in a minute with some Q&A. That was fabulous. I can't wait to read the next book.
Me too.